Captain Deho stood on the bridge of his warship, looking at the star maps with growing anger. The red line on the display showed the boundary that no alien ship was allowed to cross. Beyond that line lay human space, a region of the galaxy that had been forbidden to all alien races for over 200 years. The other officers on the bridge moved quietly around their stations. They knew their captain was in a bad mood. Deho had been denied promotion 3 times because he kept asking questions about the humans. Questions that his superiors did not want to answer. The official records about humans were locked away. Only the highest-ranking officials in the Viridian Empire could read them. All Deho knew was that humans had appeared from a small blue planet called Earth about 200 years ago. They had spread to dozens of star systems very quickly, and something happened that made every major alien empire agree to stay away. From human territory, what could make the mighty Viridian Empire afraid? What could scare the warlike Korthok clans into signing peace treaties? What could make the ancient Zephyrian Council agree to quarantine an entire region of space? Deho needed to know. His tactical officer Taman approached carefully. The young alien had served under Deho for 5 years. He knew when his captain was planning something dangerous. Captain, the long-range sensors have detected something interesting. There appears to be a human outpost on the edge of their territory. It looks abandoned. Ho turned quickly. His 4 eyes focused on the sensor display. The structure was small. Maybe 20 people could live there. It was positioned right on the boundary line between human space and neutral territory. Most importantly, it was not sending out any signals. How long has it been silent, Taman? Sensors show no activity for at least 6 months, sir. No ships have visited, no communications have been sent. It appears to be completely abandoned. Deho felt excitement building in his chest. This was his chance. An abandoned human facility. Would contain records, computer systems, technology, maybe even prisoners he could question. He could finally learn what made humans so dangerous that entire civilizations ran away from them. The captain walked to the communications station. The officer there looked up nervously. Send a message to the fleet. Tell all ship commanders to prepare for immediate departure. We are going hunting, sir. The admiral gave strict orders. We are not to approach human territory under any circumstances. The penalty for disobeying is execution. Deho smiled coldly. That was only if they were caught. The outpost was abandoned. They could get in and out quickly. No one would ever know. They had been there. The fleet consists of 12 ships, Taman, all equipped with the newest weapons and shields. If this outpost really is empty, we can explore it safely. If it is not empty, we have enough firepower to handle any resistance. Over. The next hour, 12 Viridian warships changed course toward the forbidden boundary. Each ship carried a crew of 300 highly trained soldiers. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could withstand the explosion of a star. Deho was confident that whatever secrets the humans were hiding, he would discover them today. As they approached the boundary line, the ship's sensors began picking up more details about the human outpost. It was definitely artificial. The structure was made of materials that Viridian science could not identify. It appeared to be built into a large asteroid. Multiple levels extended deep into the rock. Min studied the readings carefully. Captain, I am detecting some unusual energy patterns. The power signatures do not match any known technology. What kind of energy patterns? The readings keep changing, sir. Sometimes the structure appears to be using massive amounts of power. Sometimes it appears to be generating power. The patterns make no sense. Deho dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. Human technology was probably just different from alien technology. That did not make it dangerous. It just made it interesting. The 12 ships crossed the boundary into human space. Immediately, every alarm on every bridge began screaming. The ship's computer systems detected that they had entered forbidden territory. Emergency protocols activated automatically. Messages were being sent back to Viridian Command reporting their location. Shut off those alarms. Cut all communications. Back to headquarters. From now on, we maintain radio silence. The crew followed orders, but Deho could see the fear in their faces. They were violating the most serious law in the Viridian military code. If they were discovered, they would all be executed as traitors. The human outpost grew larger on the main screen as they approached. It was bigger than it had appeared from long range. The structure was at least 5 kilometers across. Dozens of docking ports were built into the sides. Windows showed empty corridors and dark rooms inside. "Sir, we are receiving a signal from the outpost, Deho." Felt his heart jump. Put it on the main screen. A human appeared on the display. She was smaller than most aliens. Her skin was pale and her hair was dark. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons visible. Most surprisingly, she was smiling. "Welcome to Station Omega 7. I am Commander Biora." "We have been expecting you, Captain Deho." The bridge fell silent. How did this human know his name? How did she know they were coming? The outpost was supposed to be abandoned. "I do not know how you learned about our mission, human, but you are greatly outnumbered. Surrender immediately and we will not harm you." Bora laughed softly. "Captain, you misunderstand the situation completely. You have not found an abandoned outpost. You have walked into something much more interesting." The lights inside the human station began to change. What had appeared to be ordinary white lighting shifted to a deep blue glow. The structure itself seemed to shimmer like it was moving, even though it remained in the same position. "You see, Captain, humans have been waiting for someone like you. Someone curious enough and foolish enough to cross our boundary. Not someone who wants to learn why the galaxy fears us. Today, you are going to get your wish." Deho felt cold fear creeping up his spine. This was not what he had planned. The abandoned outpost was obviously not abandoned. The single human commander was not afraid of 12 warships. Something was very wrong, but it was too late to retreat now. His ships were too close to the station. His crew was watching to see what he would do. His career and his life depended on completing this mission successfully. Whatever games you are playing, human, they end now. You have 1 minute to surrender before we open fire. Biora smiled wider. 1 minute should be exactly enough time, Captain. Enough time for you to understand that no one invades human space. Ever. The station began to glow brighter. The blue glow from the human station grew brighter with each passing second. Captain Deho watched his sensor displays with growing confusion. The readings made no sense. One moment the station appeared solid and normal. The next moment it seemed to flicker like it was not completely there. Commander Biora remained calm on the communication screen. She stood with her hands behind her back, looking directly at Deho, as if she could see him through the display. Her smile never wavered, even though 12 heavily armed warships surrounded her small outpost. "Captain, I can see you are confused by what your sensors are telling you. Let me help you understand what is happening. What you thought was an abandoned research station is actually something much more sophisticated." Deho felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool air on the bridge. His tactical officer, Taman, was frantically working at his station, trying to get clear readings on the human structure, sir. The sensors cannot lock onto the target. The station keeps shifting between different dimensional signatures. Sometimes it appears to be in normal space. Sometimes it appears to be somewhere else entirely. Biora nodded as if she could hear their conversation. "That is correct, officer." Taman, Station Omega 7 exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We found that building in only 3 dimensions was very limiting. So we learned to build in 7 dimensions instead. The human commander touched a control panel on her wall. The station around her began to change. What had looked like simple metal corridors now showed complex crystalline structures. The walls themselves seemed to be alive with flowing energy patterns. "Captain Deho, you came here looking for answers about humans. You wanted to know why the Galactic Council fears us. Why your empire refuses to enter our space. Why every military force in the galaxy retreats when they encounter us. Today, you will learn." A new human appeared on the screen beside Biora. This one was younger looking with short black hair and wearing an engineering uniform. She carried what appeared to be a simple tablet computer, but it glowed with the same blue energy as the station walls. "This is Janae, our chief engineer. She will be demonstrating what your military leaders call first contact protocol." "It is not a weapon, Captain. It is an education. Jin'ei stepped forward and began working on her tablet. As she touched the screen, the space around the human station began to bend and twist. The 12 Viridian warships found themselves being pulled in too. A circular formation, whether their captains wanted it or not. Sir, we have lost control of navigation. The ships are moving on their own. Our engines are at full power, but we cannot change course. Daiho grabbed the communication console. What are you doing to our ship's human? Bara looked amused. You're not doing anything to your ship's captain. We are simply changing the nature of space around them. Your vessels are still functioning perfectly, but the space they exist in now follows our rules. Instead of the normal rules of physics, the stars outside the bridge windows began to move in impossible patterns. What had been empty space between the station and the ships now showed flowing rivers of light. The Viridian vessels were floating in what looked like an ocean of pure energy. Jin'ei spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm and patient, like a teacher explaining something to children. Captain, your species builds ships that move through space.
Yes.
Humans build space that moves around ships. Your weapons fire projectiles that travel in straight lines. Our defenses curve the lines so projectiles travel in circles and return to their origin. Tae-Min looked up from his sensor station with terror in his eyes. Sir, the energy readings are off every scale we have. Power source for this effect should require the output of an entire star, but our sensors detect no massive power generation anywhere. Bora nodded approvingly. Very observant, Taemin. There's no massive power generation because we are not generating power. We are borrowing it from the fundamental forces that hold the universe together. When you understand that matter and energy are the same thing, you can convert between them at will. The human station suddenly appeared much larger than before. What had seemed like a small outpost now revealed itself to be a massive complex extending in directions that hurt to look at. Structures twisted through dimensions that Daiho could not even comprehend. This is impossible. No species has technology like this. The laws of physics do not allow such things. Jin'ei smiled gently. Captain, the laws of physics are more like suggestions. Most species accept them as absolute limits. Humans prefer to think of them as starting points. When we encounter a law that limits us, we study it until we understand it completely. Then, we rewrite it. The display screen split to show the interior of the human station. Dozens of humans moved through corridors that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. Some of them appeared to be walking on the walls or ceiling as if gravity was optional. Others seemed to be moving through solid barriers like they were. Not there, you see, Captain. This is not just a monitoring station. This is a training facility. Young humans come here to learn how to manipulate reality at the most basic level. What you are witnessing is the equivalent of a kindergarten class. Felt his legs grow weak. If this was basic training for human children, what were adult humans capable of? What kind of military forces did they possess? How had his empire survived this long with such beings living nearby? Biora seemed to read his thoughts. Do not fear. For your empire, Captain, humans have no interest in conquering or destroying other species. We learned long ago that diversity makes the universe more interesting. We prefer to observe and learn rather than dominate and control. The communication officer at the back of the bridge spoke up nervously. Sir, we are receiving signals from multiple sources. It appears that this station has been monitoring communications from 17 different alien civilizations simultaneously. That is correct, officer, Biora confirmed. We have been watching and learning from our neighbors for many decades. Every military plan, every diplomatic negotiation, every scientific discovery has been observed and recorded. We know more about your species than you know about yourselves, Jin'ei. Touched her tablet again, and holographic displays appeared throughout the bridge of Daiho's ship. The displays showed detailed maps of Viridian space, including the locations of secret military bases that were supposed to be completely hidden. Captain, we are not your enemies, but we are not helpless victims either. You came here expecting to find a small research station defended by a handful of scientists. Instead, you have discovered that humans prepare for every possibility. We knew someone would eventually test our boundaries. We have been ready for you. The blue glow from the station began to pulse in a steady rhythm. With each pulse, the twisted space around the ships became more complex. The Viridian vessels were now floating in a maze of energy streams that seemed to lead in all directions at once. Now, Captain, you have a choice to make. You can order your ships to attack us and learn what happens when someone actually tries to invade human space. Or you can listen while we explain why the galaxy fears us and what that means for your future. Captain Deho stared at the impossible displays surrounding his bridge. The holographic maps showed every secret base and hidden weapon in Viridian space. Information that should have been completely secure was floating in the air like common knowledge. His hand shook as he realized how completely exposed his entire civilization had been. Commander. Bora watched him with patient eyes. She seemed to understand exactly what he was thinking and feeling. Her expression was kind but also sad, like she was sorry he had to learn the truth this way. Captain, you are beginning to understand why your leaders created the quarantine zone around human space. It was not to keep us trapped inside. It was to keep other species safe, while they decided whether they were ready to know what we have become. Janae stepped closer to her communication panel. The blue energy patterns flowing through the station walls seemed to respond to her presence. They grew brighter and more complex whenever she moved. Let me show you something that will help you understand, Captain. Your weapon systems are trying to lock onto our station, but they cannot get a clear target. Do you know why Tay-Min looked up from his tactical display with confusion written across his face? The targeting computers keep showing different readings every few seconds. Sometimes the station appears to be directly in front of us. Sometimes it appears to be thousands of kilometers away. Sometimes it appears to be in multiple locations at the same time. Janae nodded approvingly. That is because Station Omega-7 does not exist in just one place. We built it to exist in 17 different locations simultaneously. Each location exists in a different layer of reality. You're looking at all 17 layers at once, which is why your sensors cannot understand what they are detecting. The young human engineer touched her tablet, and the space around the station began to shift again. The Viridian ships found themselves looking at multiple versions of the same structure. Each version was slightly different, but they all occupied the same coordinates. Captain, your species builds things in 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. Humans learn to build in dimensions that do not have names in your language. We create structures that exist in past, present, and future simultaneously. We design buildings that are bigger on the inside than the outside. We construct defenses that exist in the spaces between atoms. Deho felt his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. The concepts were beyond anything his species had ever imagined. How could something exist in multiple places at once? How could a building be bigger inside than outside? How could defenses exist in empty space? His communications officer, Wu Jin, spoke up from the back of the bridge. "Okay, sir, I am detecting massive data streams flowing between this station and locations. Throughout the galaxy, the amount of information being transmitted is greater than the total communication capacity of our entire empire." Biora smiled at the officer. "Very good, Wu Jin. This station is not just monitoring your communications. It is connected to every human facility in the galaxy through what we call the quantum mesh. Every human installation shares information instantly with every other installation. When you entered our space, every human in the galaxy knew about it within seconds. The implications hit Deho like a physical blow. If all human facilities were connected, then attacking one would alert all the others instantly. There could be no surprise attacks on human targets, isolated raids, no quick strikes followed by rapid retreat. But there was something else, something that terrified him even more. If humans could monitor and communicate across the entire galaxy instantly, then they possessed technology that was centuries ahead of anything the major empires had developed. Janae seemed to read his thoughts. "You are wondering about our technology? Captain, you want to know how we developed such capabilities in only 200 years? The answer is simple. We think differently than other species." The engineer began walking through the station corridors while continuing to speak as she moved. The walls around her became transparent, allowing the aliens to see the incredible complexity of the human construction. Every surface was covered with patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living things. Most species discover a scientific principle. and then spend centuries finding ways to use it. Humans discover a principle and immediately begin looking for ways to break it or transcend it. We do not accept limitations. We view every law of physics as a challenge to overcome. Tae-Min was studying his sensor readings with increasing amazement. "Sir, the power flowing through that station is incredible. But I cannot detect any power generation equipment. No reactors, no fusion chambers, no antimatter storage. Where is the energy coming from?" Janae stopped walking and turned to face the camera directly. "Officer Taemin, you are thinking about power generation the wrong way. Humans do not generate energy. We harvest it from the fabric of reality itself. Every atom in the universe contains vast amounts of energy. Every photon of light carries power. Every gravitational field contains force that can be redirected and used." She held up her tablet, and it began to glow with intense white light. The device was drawing power directly from the quantum fluctuations in empty space. Energy that other species considered impossible to access was being used to run a simple computer. "Captain, your weapons fire projectiles that follow predictable paths. Your shields absorb energy from incoming attacks. Your engines push against space to create movement. All of these approaches accept the basic rules of physics as unchangeable facts." The station around Janae began to shift and change. Walls moved like liquid. Floors became transparent. Ceiling turned into flowing streams of light. The entire structure was rebuilding itself, continuously according to the needs of the moment. Human engineering does not work within the laws of physics. We rewrite those laws to suit our purposes. We do not push against space to create movement. We convince space to move us. We do not absorb energy from attacks. We redirect that energy into our own systems. We do not fire projectiles that follow predictable paths. We create weapons that define their own paths through reality. Daeho watched in growing horror as the demonstration continued. Everything he had believed about technology and science was being proved wrong. His species had spent thousands of years developing weapons and defenses based on fixed physical laws. Humans had spent 200 years learning to ignore those laws entirely. A new signal appeared on the communication display. Another human was requesting permission to join the conversation. This one appeared to be much older than the others. His hair was white, and his face showed the lines of great age. But his eyes held a depth of knowledge that seemed infinite. "Commander Biora, this is Admiral Hoyenwu. He leads the human defense forces for this sector of the galaxy. He has been watching your encounter with great interest." The old human stepped into view and looked directly at Captain Daeho. His expression was serious but not threatening. He spoke with the voice of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall across the centuries. "Captain, you have learned much today? You have seen what human engineering can accomplish. You have witnessed capabilities that your species considers impossible. But you have not yet learned the most important lesson. You have not learned why we developed these capabilities in the first place." The Admiral gestured, and the space around all 12 Viridian ships began to glow with soft golden light. The trapped vessels found themselves floating in what appeared to be a vast cathedral made of pure energy. The beauty of it was overwhelming. "The answer, Captain, is simple. We developed these capabilities because the universe is far more dangerous than you realize. And someone needs to be strong enough to protect the species that are not yet ready to protect themselves." Admiral Hoyenwu stood in the center of the golden cathedral of light that now surrounded the 12 Viridian warships. His white hair seemed to glow with the same energy that flowed through the walls of the human station. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "Captain Daeho, you came here seeking knowledge about humanity. You wanted to understand why the galaxy fears us. I am prepared to show you everything. But first you must make a choice. You can order your fleet to retreat now and return to your empire with the warning that human space remains forbidden. Or you can stay and learn the complete truth about what we have become." Daeho felt the eyes of his entire crew watching him. His tactical officer Taemin looked terrified. His communications officer Wu Jin was pale with fear. Every alien on every ship in his fleet was waiting to see what their captain would decide. The smart choice was obvious. Retreat immediately. report to his superiors that human space was more dangerous than anyone had imagined, except that some knowledge was too dangerous to possess. But Daeho had not become a captain by making safe choices. "We will stay, Admiral. Show us what you want us to see." Hyan-Woo nodded slowly. His expression showed both approval and sadness. "Very well, Captain. But understand that once you have seen what I am about to show you, there will be no going back. You will never be able to forget what you learn here today." The golden light around the ships began to pulse in a steady rhythm. With each pulse, new images appeared in the space between the vessels. Holographic displays showed scenes from across the galaxy, battles between alien fleets, planets being destroyed by weapons of incredible power, entire star systems being consumed by forces beyond imagination. "Admiral, these images show conflicts that happened centuries ago, wars between species that no longer exist. What does this have to do with humans?" Hyan-Woo gestured, and the images changed. Now they showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth looked peaceful and beautiful from space. But the displays zoomed in to show the surface. Cities filled with millions of people. Vast areas of land covered with growing crops. Oceans teeming with life. This is where humanity began, Captain. A single world with limited resources and no knowledge of the greater galaxy. We were alone and vulnerable. We had no idea that thousands of species filled the stars around us. We had no idea how dangerous the universe could be. The images shifted again. Now they showed human spacecraft leaving Earth for the first time. Small primitive vessels that could barely reach the nearest stars. The early human explorers looked excited and hopeful as they ventured into the unknown. For the first 50 years of human space exploration, we encountered no other intelligent life. We began to believe that we were alone in the universe. We established colonies on dozens of worlds. We built cities and farms and research stations. We thought we were safe. A new human appeared on the communication display. Oh, this one looked very young, with bright eyes and an eager expression. But there was something strange about her. She moved with the confidence of someone much older and more experienced. "This is So Young. She will help me explain what happened when humanity first encountered other species in the galaxy." So Young stepped forward and began to speak. Her voice sounded like that of a teenager, but her words carried the wisdom of someone who had lived for centuries. "Captain Daeho, I was present when humans first met alien visitors. It was 847 years ago. I was 19 years old at the time. I'm still 19 years old today." Daeho felt confusion wash over him. How could someone live for over 800 years and still appear to be a teenager? Was this some kind of trick or illusion? Taemin spoke up from his tactical station. "Sir, that is impossible. No known species has a natural lifespan longer than 200 years. Even with the best medical technology, life extension is limited." Sa-Young smiled gently. "You are correct, Officer Taemin. No natural species lives that long. But humans stopped being completely natural a long time ago. We learned to rebuild our bodies at the cellular level. We learned to transfer our consciousness between different physical forms. We learned to exist as pure energy when necessary. Death became optional. The implications hit Daeho like a physical blow. If humans could live indefinitely, then every human he was speaking to could have centuries or even millennia of experience. The young-looking engineer Gane could actually be older than his entire civilization. Admiral Hyan-Woo confirmed his fears. "Captain, most of the humans you have met today are older than your species has been spacefaring. Gane has been designing quantum structures for over 600 years. Commander Biora has been studying alien psychology for 4 centuries. I myself have been protecting this region of space for nearly 1,000 years." The golden light around the ships began to change color, shifted from warm gold to deep purple, and then to brilliant white. With each color change, the space around the vessels seemed to expand until they were floating in what appeared to be an infinite void filled with stars. Sa-Young continued her explanation. "When humans first encountered alien species, we tried to make peaceful contact. We offered to share our knowledge and resources. We invited them to visit our worlds and learn from each other. Most species rejected our offers. They saw us as primitive newcomers who had nothing valuable to contribute. The holographic displays showed scenes of early human diplomatic missions. Small human vessels approaching massive alien fleets. Human ambassadors being turned away or ignored. Human colonies being attacked without warning by species that saw them as easy targets. Some species went further than rejection, Captain. They saw human worlds as resources to be harvested. They saw humans as slaves to be captured. They saw our technology as prizes to be stolen. They attacked our colonies and killed our people because they believed we were too weak to defend ourselves. Displays showed the destruction of human settlements. Alien warships bombarding cities from orbit. Human families being forced into slavery. Children being taken from their parents. Entire worlds being stripped of their resources and left as barren rocks. We tried to defend ourselves using conventional methods, Captain. We built warships with powerful weapons. We developed shields and armor to protect our colonies. We formed alliances with species that seemed friendly. Nothing worked. We were outnumbered by thousands to one. Every time we defeated one enemy, two more appeared to take their place. Saul Young paused and looked directly at Captain Deho. Her young face showed the pain of memories that stretched across centuries. That is when we realized that conventional methods would never be enough. If humanity was going to survive in a hostile galaxy, we needed to become something more than human. We needed to transcend every limitation that biology had placed upon us. We needed to become beings that could not be conquered or destroyed. The white light around the ships began to pulse faster. With each pulse, the stars in the void seemed to move closer until the Viridian vessels were surrounded by blazing suns. The heat and light should have destroyed them instantly, but somehow they remained safe and cool. Admiral Hyenwu spoke again. The process took us nearly 150 years, Captain. We learned to modify our bodies to survive in any environment. We learned to expand our minds to process information at impossible speeds. We learned to manipulate matter and energy with thought alone. We learned to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most importantly, we learned that individual humans were still vulnerable. So we learned to connect our consciousness together. Every human became part of a collective awareness that spanned the galaxy. When one human learned something, all humans learned it instantly. When one human was threatened, all humans responded. Immediately, Sa-Young gestured, and suddenly, there were thousands of humans visible throughout the void. They stood on asteroids and planets and space stations. They floated in the vacuum between stars. All of them were looking at the Viridian ships with the same expression of patient curiosity. Captain, you asked why the galaxy fears humanity. Now you know. We are not just another species competing for resources. We are collective consciousness. With bodies that cannot be permanently destroyed, memories that cannot be erased, and abilities that transcend the normal laws of physics. We are what every species in the galaxy might become if they were willing to pay the price we paid. The thousands of humans floating throughout the star-filled void all turned their attention to Captain Deho at the same moment. Their synchronized movement was both beautiful and terrifying. It was like watching a single mind operating through countless bodies scattered across the galaxy. Admiral Hyenwu stepped forward in the golden light. His ancient eyes held compassion for the fear he could see in the alien captain's face, but there was also determination. The lesson was not complete. The most important part was yet to come. Captain, you now understand what humanity became in order to survive, but you have not yet seen what we are capable of when survival is threatened. The Galactic Council fears us not because of what we are, but because of what we can do. We'll witness the dangerous ship that your intelligence reports mention. The space around the 12 Viridian warships began to change again. The blazing stars faded away and were replaced by complete darkness. But this was not the empty darkness of space. This was something else. It's a darkness that seemed alive and aware. Sa-Young's voice came from everywhere at once. She was no longer visible on any single communication screen. Instead, her words seemed to come from the darkness itself. Captain, what you called our dangerous ship is not a traditional vessel. It is something your species has no words to describe. Slowly, a structure began to appear in the darkness. At first, it looked like a simple sphere made of silver metal. But as Daeho watched more carefully, he realized that the sphere was not reflecting light. It was generating its own illumination from within. The surface rippled like liquid, but remained perfectly solid. Taemin stared at his sensor displays in confusion. Sir, the readings make no sense. The object appears to be the size of a small moon, but our instruments say it has no mass. It should be creating a massive gravitational field, but space around it remains completely flat. Jin'e's voice joined Soyoung's coming from the darkness around them. Officer Taemin, you are trying to measure something that exists outside your normal physics. The sphere you see is what we call a pocket universe. It contains its own space, its own time, and its own natural laws. The silver sphere began to expand. As it grew larger, the Viridian ships were drawn closer to its surface. But instead of hitting solid metal, they passed through it like it was made of light. Suddenly, the 12 warships found themselves floating inside the sphere, looking out at a completely different universe. The stars outside were different colors. Some burned with green fire, while others pulsed with deep purple light. The laws of physics that governed this space were clearly not the same as the universe they had come from. Gravity flowed in rivers of visible force. Time moved in spirals instead of straight lines. Commander Biora appeared on their communication screens again. Welcome to the interior of a human war vessel, Captain. What you see around you is a universe we created specifically for combat. Inside this space, we are not bound by the limitations that restrict us in normal reality. The demonstration began gently. A group of human children appeared, floating in the space outside the alien ships. They looked no older than 10 or 12 years. But as Daeho watched, they began to play games that defied every natural law. He understood. One child reached out and grabbed a handful of empty space. When she squeezed her fist, the space compressed into a glowing ball of energy. To another child who caught it and stretched it back into its original shape. Another child began drawing pictures in the air with his finger, but these were not simple drawings. They were three-dimensional structures that became real as soon as he finished them. He drew a flower, and it bloomed with petals made of crystallized time. He drew a bird, and it flew away, singing notes that created visible patterns in the air. Soyoung's voice explained what they were seeing. Captain, these children are learning to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. In normal space, such abilities would be impossible. But inside our pocket universes, we can rewrite any law of physics that does not serve our needs. The children noticed the alien ships and flew over to investigate. They moved through space without any kind of propulsion. They simply decided where they wanted to be and appeared there instantly. One of them waved at Captain Daeho through the bridge window. Wu Zhen spoke up from his communication station. Sir, the child is trying to communicate with us. She appears to be speaking, but we cannot hear her voice. The little girl smiled and touched the hull of the ship with her bare hand. Suddenly her voice came through every speaker on the bridge. Hello, alien captain. We have never seen ships like yours before. Are you here to play with us? Before Daeho could respond, the child reached into the ship's hull and pulled out a piece of metal. She held it up to examine it closely, then handed it to one of her friends. The metal should have been solid and immovable, but she had removed it as easily as picking fruit from a tree. The hull breach should have caused explosive decompression. The bridge should have been filled with escaping atmosphere. But nothing happened. The ship remained perfectly intact, as if the metal had never been removed. Jin'e's voice provided the explanation. Captain, inside our pocket universe, matter exists as patterns of information rather than solid objects. The child did not damage your ship. She simply copied the pattern that defines a piece of your hull. Your original vessel remains completely unchanged. More human children began to appear. Dozens, then hundreds of them floating through space around the trapped alien fleet. All of them looked curious and excited to see visitors. None of them seemed to understand that the aliens found their abilities terrifying. A boy who appeared to be about 8 years old flew up to Taemin's tactical station, passed through the ship's hull like it was not there, and stood directly in front of the startled officer. Hello, Mr. Alien. My name is Minho. I am learning to be a reality engineer. Would you like to see what I can build? Before Taemin could answer, Minho began constructing something in the air above his head. started as a single point of light, but quickly grew into a complex crystalline structure. The structure continued to expand until it filled half the bridge. As the crystal grew, it began to sing. The sound was unlike anything the aliens had ever heard. It was music, but also mathematics. Harmony, but also physics. The song described the fundamental equations that held the universe together and suggested ways they could be improved. Admiral Hyanwu appeared among the children. His presence caused them all to gather around him with obvious affection and respect. He spoke to them in a language that sounded like flowing water, mixed with distant thunder. The children nodded and began to fade away one by one. But before they left, each of them created a small gift for the alien visitors. Flowers made of solidified starlight, sculptures carved from crystallized music, poems written in languages that had not been invented yet. Hyanwu turned to address Captain Deho directly. "The children wanted to welcome you properly, Captain. In human culture, we show friendship by sharing our greatest treasures. For us, knowledge and beauty are the most valuable things in existence." The old admiral gestured, and the silver sphere around them began to change. The alien universe outside faded away and was replaced by normal space. But the Viridian ships were no longer where they had been before. They were now floating in the middle of a vast human city that existed in the vacuum of space. Millions of humans lived and worked in structures that defied gravity and logic. Buildings grew like living trees reaching in all directions. Parks and gardens flourished in areas where no atmosphere should exist. Bohr's voice came from speakers throughout the city. "Captain, you have seen our children at play. You have witnessed abilities that your science considers impossible. But you have not yet understood the most important lesson. You've not learned what happens when humans must defend themselves." The city around them began to pulse with deep red light. Every human visible in the streets and buildings turned to look at the alien ships. Their expressions were no longer curious or playful. They had become focused and determined. Sol Young appeared on the communication screen one final time. "Captain, the demonstration you have witnessed was created by children who are still learning to use their abilities. Adult humans who have mastered these powers are capable of much more. Would you like to see what happens when someone actually tries to invade human space?" The deep red light pulsing through the human city grew stronger with each passing second. Captain Deho could see millions of humans in the streets and buildings, all turning their attention toward his trapped fleet. Their faces showed the same focused determination he had seen in elite soldiers preparing for battle. But something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the humans began to sing. The song started with a single voice. A woman standing on a platform near the alien ships began to hum a simple melody. Within moments, another voice joined her, then another. Soon, thousands of humans throughout the city were adding their voices to the growing harmony. The melody was beautiful beyond description. It seemed to contain every emotion that intelligent beings could feel: joy and sorrow, hope and fear, love and loss, wonder and wisdom. As the song grew stronger, the red light around the city began to change color. A new human appeared on the communication screens of all 12 Viridian ships. This woman looked different from the others. She wore robes that seemed to be made of flowing starlight. Her hair moved like it was underwater, even though she stood in normal atmosphere. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of infinite patience. "The Jinn of the human diplomatic corps. I have been chosen to offer you the final lesson, Captain Deho. The lesson that will determine whether you return to your empire as an enemy or as a friend." The singing continued to grow more complex. Harmonies layered upon harmonies until the music seemed to have physical substance. The notes created visible patterns in the air around the ships. Colors that had no names flowed through space like living things, Captain. You have witnessed human children at play. You have seen our cities and our technology. You have learned that we can manipulate reality itself according to our will. There is one thing you have not yet understood. You have not learned why we developed these abilities. The space around the human city began to expand. What had seemed like a single metropolitan area revealed itself to be much larger. Dozens of similar cities became visible, stretching in all directions. Each one housed millions of humans living and working in impossible structures, but the cities were not alone. Between them floated vessels that clearly belonged to other species, alien ships and stations that had been integrated into the human civilization. Beings that looked nothing like humans moved freely through the streets alongside. Their human neighbors Tay-Min stared at his sensor displays in amazement. "Sir, I am detecting at least 47 different species living within this human space. Many of them appear to be modifications of known alien races, but they have been changed somehow."
Hell yes.
The gene nodded approvingly.
What?
"Very observant, officer." Taman, what you see around you are species that chose to join human civilization rather than fear it. They have been transformed not into humans, but into something greater than they were before. The singing reached a crescendo. Suddenly, the space around the Viridian ships filled with representatives of dozens of alien species. But these were not the same beings that existed in the wider galaxy. They had been changed, enhanced, made more than they had been. A creature that had once been similar to Taman's species approached his ship. But this being moved with grace and purpose that spoke of centuries of experience. Its eyes held depths of knowledge that seemed infinite. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonics that touched the soul. "Greetings, cousins. I was once like you, bound by the limitations of biology and physics, trapped in a single body with a single perspective, afraid of death and the passage of time, but humanity offered me a choice. I could remain as I was, or I could become something more." Another being approached, Captain Deho's vessel. This one had clearly been a warrior species originally. Its body was covered with natural armor, and its hands ended in razor-sharp claws. But its expression was peaceful, and its movements were graceful rather than threatening. I chose transformation. "Captain, I chose to link my consciousness with the human collective. I chose to modify my body to survive in any environment. I chose to expand my mind to process information at impossible speeds. I chose to become immortal so that I could continue learning and growing forever." The djinn gestured, and the singing began to fade to a gentle background melody. The colors flowing through space settled into a soft golden glow that surrounded all the ships like a warm embrace. Captain Deho, the quarantine zone around human space, was never meant to keep us imprisoned. It was meant to give other species time to decide whether they were ready for what we offer. The choice to transcend every limitation that biology and physics have placed upon intelligent life. Admiral Hyanwu appeared beside the djinn. His ancient face showed the wisdom of someone who had watched civilizations rise and fall across the millennia. But his expression was kind and hopeful rather than threatening. "Captain, your species stands at a crossroads. You can return to your empire and report that human space remains forbidden. You can tell your leaders that humans are too dangerous to approach. You can spend the rest of your civilization's existence wondering what might have been." The old admiral gestured toward the transformed aliens moving through the human cities. Their faces showed a contentment and purpose that was beautiful to witness. They had found something that most species spent their entire existence searching for. Or you can choose to stay. You can choose to undergo the transformation that will make you more than you ever imagined possible. You can choose to join a civilization that spans dimensions and transcends time itself. You can choose to become part of something greater than any single species could achieve alone. Commander Biora appeared on the screen alongside the others. Her expression was warm and welcoming, the same expression she had worn when she first greeted the alien invaders hours earlier. "Captain, the choice is yours to make. But know that whatever you decide, humanity will respect your decision. If you choose to leave, we will ensure that your journey home is safe and swift. If you choose to stay, we will help you become everything you have the potential to be." The golden light surrounding the ships began to pulse in rhythm with the gentle background music. Each pulse seemed to offer a glimpse of possibilities beyond imagination, lives that could span millennia, bodies that could survive in any environment, minds that could process the secrets of the universe itself. Taman looked up from his tactical station. His expression showed wonder rather than fear for the first time since they had entered human space. Sir, several members of our crew are requesting permission to volunteer for the transformation process. They want to stay and learn what humans can teach them, Wu Jin spoke up from the communications station. Be quiet, sir. I am receiving similar requests from crews throughout the fleet. Many of our people are fascinated by what they have seen here today. They want to become part of this civilization. Captain Deho felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. He could order his fleet to retreat and return to Viridian space with a warning that would keep his people safe but ignorant. Could take the greatest risk in the history of his species and trust that humanity offered transformation rather than destruction. He looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. He saw fear in some eyes but hope in others. He saw the natural caution of his species but also the curiosity that had driven them to explore the stars in the first place. Admiral Han Wu spoke one final time. Captain, whatever you decide, know that humanity has been waiting for species like yours to join us. We have been preparing for the day when the galaxy would be ready to transcend its limitations and become something greater. Today might be that day. The golden light around the ships grew brighter as Captain Deho was prepared to make the choice that would determine the future of both species. Behind him, the stars of human space glowed with infinite possibility.